It's all the news you need to know. This is the News Authority, local talk radio, 660 AM.
It will be found an unjust and unwise jealousy to deprive a man of his natural liberty upon the supposition he may abuse it. George Washington.
They who would give up an essential liberty for temporary security deserve neither liberty or security. Benjamin Franklin.
The Constitution is not an instrument for the government to restrain the people. It is an instrument for the people to restrain the government, lest it come to dominate our lives and interests. Patrick Henry.
America will never be destroyed from the outside. If we falter and lose our freedoms, it would be because we destroyed ourselves. Abraham Lincoln.
I predict future happiness for Americans if they can prevent the government from wasting the labors of the people under the pretense of taking care of them. Thomas Jefferson.
Property is surely a right of mankind as real as liberty. John Adams.
The Constitution is the guide which I never will abandon. George Washington.
To the Saturday morning wake-up call right here on KFAR. It is hour one of Patriots Lament. I'm Steve Floyd, just the monkey behind the machine. Joining us in the studio, the real brain trust that makes this show every single week. It's the Bennett brothers from Bighorn Enterprises. We have Josh Bennett. Good morning, Josh.
Good morning.
And from the Once and Future Far North Tactical, you're actually wearing a Far North Tactical T-shirt today. And it's Aaron Bennett up in here. Good morning, Aaron.
Morning, Steve. I don't have one of those.
What don't you have?
The shirts.
Oh, the shirt. Yeah, that's a very nice shirt. It's got like a... Is that knit on there? Or?
These were made 5 years ago, and we only made 2 or 3 of them. Changed the snake. Don't tread on me.
Can't hear you. You're too far away from the microphone there.
Hello. It's not.
All right.
Oh, there we go.
Hello. There's something wrong with my mic.
I think it's that button up there.
I'm trying to get the volume adjusted to the point where I can actually hear you, and yet you keep wiggling it around. And
hello.
Hi.
There it is.
Yeah, really? I can't hear myself.
I think that's the way it works.
Oh.
So, go ahead, Aaron. Okay, don't. On the way here, I was listening to Barack Obama. And he was talking about, they was having some kind of presidential something or other for some police officers. I thought it was interesting because it kind of went along with the little post I did the other day where he says, you fellas out there, you take care of us, even at your own risk of life, but you protect us. And I started thinking about the us, the us's. Who exactly are these us? Just right there here at the top of the hour news there. They take care of us. Yes, they do take care of them, the political elites. Because every day here now we're seeing that they take care of us with billy clubs and mace and all that good stuff.
And there's just a fellow down in California beaten to death by the state troopers down there while he was pleading for his life in front of his family, right?
Yep, beaten to death with clubs. And then they went around and took all the everyone. I guess there's plenty of people that had their snazzy iPhones clicked up and were taking video of the whole thing. But immediately the police confiscated everyone's phone because they said it was now evidence. Confiscated for evidence.
I thought it was illegal to film police officers now.
No. No.
We talked about that last week with the trooper incident out in was that Kodiak, right?
Kodiak.
Where the woman was arrested basically for no reason, and she asked on the video, it was like a 11-minute long video, I don't know what, 50 times? Yeah. What am I being arrested for? Why are you arresting me? And as she's being filmed, the troopers tried to get the woman, the young girl who was filming it, to go away, and she's like, no, she has the right to be there. You keep filming.
Yeah, it's crazy. Good lesson, though, I took away from that whole deal down there. That guy in California he's dead. I was going to say got the crap beat out of him, but he got the life beat out of him. So they stole the phones, which is another good reason, folks, to download on your smartphone, if you have one, Ustream. Ustream. The letter U, stream. That way, when you need to have a little video show, you click that baby and it goes live. They can take your phone all they want. Because I have a feeling that this evidence that they took is probably not going to come back out and show much. Like, they probably erased the film immediately, I would think. I'm sure. I mean,
I don't know if they would,
why did they take it?
They would probably, in the process of entering it into evidence, the evidence gets destroyed. That's happened a number of times over, even right here locally.
No,
I mean, ask Frank Turney or some of the other people the issues that they've had with police and evidence disappearing.
Yeah.
Sometimes squirrels eat pounds of cocaine, eh?
I've heard about that. Squirrels they're hyped up enough, man. I don't want to go.
Could you imagine a squirrel?
Cokehead squirrel? That actually would explain an awful lot, though, if you think about the way squirrels act. I think they're all a bunch of cokeheads.
Wow. That's a scary thought. But, okay, now I'm going to get serious. So we've talked about this before. Who are these so-called, well, they're not peace officers. Obviously, they're just law enforcement. Mere mortal men, right? We're in a time in history, in these here U.S. of A. states and all this, whatever we call this place anymore, where we basically live in this giant corporate government state. They don't hide it anymore. I mean, anyone and everyone, both sides of the right-left political spectrum, has seen and complained about how, Bush, he bailed out all of his buddies. Well, and he did. He took billions, hundreds of billions of dollars to bail out his friends. Stole from us to give to his friends. Cronyism. Barack Obama has done the same thing. Even though he was against it at that time, he's decided several times to bail out several of his friends. It's a heist never been seen in the history of the world as far as the amount of wealth that was taken from the sheeple, us, the cows, and given to a bunch of political elites. And you have all of them are basic political elites now. They don't have any sense of the people anymore. There's no such thing as the Constitution anymore. There's no guidelines there anymore. There's no quote-unquote limits from the document anymore. The original intent is ratified, has been gone for so long that now they don't even act like perhaps it has anything to do with anything. They pass laws at will, doing what they please to enrich themselves daily, and at the same time they're ramping up their militaristic army called police officers. I mean, they're getting more militaristic by the day to protect themselves.
It's almost
what
like...
What are they so afraid of?
The police are becoming more like the military. The military are becoming more like the police. It's like they're merging into one
big
entity.
Big entity.
Lincoln said in his second term that during his first term he usurped the Constitution and did a lot of things, seized a lot of powers, executive powers as president that were outside of what the Constitution allowed him, and he admitted in essence, that he committed treason. But he said, and I worried about it until the people voted me in again. And when the people voted me in again, I felt that was my sanction that what I did was right. He didn't need to follow the Constitution. He didn't need to have it limit his power. I mean, he admitted that he committed treason against the American people, but the American people said it was okay because they voted him in again.
Right.
And that was actually from his own mouth. He believed that.
Of course, during that second election, there was quite a few people that weren't allowed to vote. That might have made a difference if they would have. But, no. I mean, the point being is today we literally... Is there any sign of any governance? Is there governance anymore at all? Or do we literally just live in a rape and pillage, steal as much as we can, as fast as we can? I don't know what. I mean, is it coming to an end? Are they seeing it? It's almost like, the Bible talks about the devil. He sees his end coming, so he's freaking out. These guys see their end coming, so are they freaking out? I mean, we know that they're...
Well, I just think personally, I just think it's the nature of plunder. And in our particular system, we have a system of legalized plunder, which is theft at the threat of force, right?
Right, but I mean, it's ramped up like
I
never
understand
before.
that, but that's a progression of any system that allows legislative law. Each set of new people that get to create laws.
More and more. And old ones never disappear. I don't know. I just have decided, a long time ago, but it seems like anyone with a thinking mind could see that there is no more, not even a ounce of legitimacy for the federal government anymore. There's no legitimacy left at all.
There's no legitimacy as it pertains to them representing the people at all.
Right. There's none. You can't get the guys that have been in there forever, you can't get them out of office. It's impossible. There's no getting them out of office. Whether they rig it, whatever, there's no getting them out of office. There's no stopping the bureaucracy. How can you stop the bureaucrats of all the 3-letter acronym agencies that they have? They never change. They're always the same people no matter who comes into power, no matter who comes into office. The same people. The State Department decides what can go on the internet now. And if, they requested, like these guys at the defense distributors, requested that they took their plans down that showed how to make a lower receiver for an AR-15 and showed how to make a pistol, which was pretty flimsy, not that great, but it's still a pistol. So they requested they take those things off the internet. But we all know it wasn't a request. It was a request at the point of a gun. Hey, we would like you to do this or we'll kill you. And now the United States government is claiming ownership of their property. What about, the government's the one that protects intellectual properties and copyrights and patents. Well, they just seized their property. They said, no, this is now it says on their website, this site, the contents of the site are now the property of the United States government. How much more blatant does this stuff have to get?
I feel like I'm watching Iron Man. Remember them in that movie where, I'm very in tune with comic books and movies, obviously, but just that aspect of if you develop something that the government wants for the good of the whole, they will come and take it.
Yeah.
Make no mistake. They will come and take it. And that request, and it's the same kind of request as, sir, will you please get out of the car? You have the right not to get out of the car, but God help you if you don't.
Yeah, you end up being like the guy in California with the clubs beating on your head. It's like the voluntary tax that we pay, the income tax. It says right on the front of the deal there, the greatest voluntary tax the world has ever known. And it is voluntary until you volunteer not to. Even then, it's still voluntary, I guess. You don't have to pay it. They'll just kill you.
If you don't like it, Josh, move.
Move somewhere else. I know. I don't know. I just have been, what a week. Every day, there's someone getting cop on their camera now, beating the crap out of someone, and nothing's done about it. They just hide, they protect themselves, whatever. We have come to the point where we are nothing but, literally, we are nothing but the cattle on the farm. That's all we are now. There's no rights. If a farmer doesn't like the fact that someone doesn't pass a gun law that he likes, then he just does an executive order. And where is anyone protecting that? No one stops them. They just go, oh, and then they go along with it. Obviously, because he offers them something. They all got something on them that someone else can use on them. That's bipartisanship. And our state governments are doing nothing about anything for anything. They just roll over.
Because of the money.
Because of the money.
Because it's a system of pillage.
Exactly. But we can vote someone in next time that's going to do better. Heard it yesterday on your show.
What if you can't vote someone in, though? This is the thing that just kills me over and over again. People keep putting all their faith in the political process and keep basically blaming those who don't vote for why there's not the change that they want it to be. But for how many years has voting been universal? I mean, it hasn't been more than it's been less than 100 years that women have been allowed to vote. When was the vote extended to former slaves? When was the vote extended to black people? Was that in the late 1800s? It was after the Civil War.
Yeah. Yeah, universal suffrage has been going on for a while.
So what if you lived 100 years ago and you were a woman? You couldn't vote. Was it your fault that you weren't voting, that things were the way they were?
Well, they thought so.
Yeah, they thought so.
If only we could vote, we could make a difference. That's basically what they thought. How much of a difference did they make?
A big one.
A big one. Yeah. Universal suffrage has been big. Right down the line of the most giant welfare state we've ever seen in history of the world. We have the biggest welfare warfare state that the world has ever seen. The biggest. In the matter of 224 years, this country has become the biggest warfare state ever and the biggest welfare state ever. And the two combined, even separated, the two cannot be maintained. Because the more welfare state goes on, the less people are producers, which means your tax base goes down every year. And the more warfare you're doing, the more you have to spend to keep your warfare going.
What's funny is in a representative type government, where everybody can participate and vote in it. They're the only type of system where conceivably every resource of that nation can be put towards warfare or towards welfare. Conceivably, 100% of everything that we produce could be swallowed up in the name of protection.
Can be plundered.
Because anything that this country does, technically we're all doing it together because we all participate. There is no entity. America goes to war. Yeah, if America does this and that for American interests, it's for all of our benefit. So conceivably, every last thing that we make, every last thing that we do, can go to protection.
Right, everything for the state.
Right, there's never any limit to the price of protection. As we all know, we all pay 40 to 50% right now for this wonderful protection.
You get your brains beat out by a baton.
Right, and then after you get beat over the head, then if you do live, then you get to go to court and find out how much you're going to get charged for that wonderful service you just got provided.
Yeah. No doubt. That was funny.
It really is that way.
No, it is. To the magnitude that's never been seen before. And it has to end, I would think. It can't be sustainable. It's not sustainable. There's no way it can sustain. There's too much debt. And of course, Americans think that debt means you need more credit. Why, by golly, we're in debt, so let's get more credit so we can spend more money and get more debt and spend more money and get more debt, which is exactly the way that the Great Depression that swarmed and covered the whole earth. That's how that happened. Up till the First World War, debt and credit was pretty much, most of the countries didn't have a lot of debt. Very little. Because most of them were on a gold standard or whatever the reasons why. Debt and credit wasn't that big of a deal because, well, in fact, I read something recently that if credit wasn't extended to the warring countries that first started World War I, they only had the funds to war for 4 weeks. And yet credit was extended to these countries to the extent where they could fight a world war for 4 years. So if these big banks hadn't been able to, hadn't been allowed to extend credit to these countries, Germany, Austria, France, the resources that they had were a 4-week war, and they would have had to go home. Well, we just can't have that. We need world wars. So debt and credit came into existence like it never had before. And after the war, all these countries had immense debts that they had to pay back. So the United States government started giving credit to all these countries, to the tens of billions at the time, which would be trillions, I suppose, these days.
You know, what's funny is just an interesting side note to what you're talking about is during that time, most of the places involved in the conflict were democracies of some sort. Germany being one of the exceptions. And it was actually our president that drug us into that, used that as one of his reasons to go over there, is to bring down
kings.
Right, bring down monarchs.
And the monarchies.
But the banks were much more willing to extend credit, and they even loaned at a subprime for the first time. Whereas with kings, they would loan at an above prime interest rate because it was risky to loan money to a king, because he didn't have the resources that a democracy did. Democracies, like we said, conceivably the nation's whole resource, everything, could be thrown into anything. Because everybody would participate.
Well,
so
in order for a king to finance a war, he had to go out and either raise taxes from the people that he was warring on behalf of, or go out and actually win the battle and take plunder.
When you're a singular entity,
or spend your own money,
it's pretty dang hard to raise taxes when you're a singular entity, because there's only one person to look at.
Because the tax base goes to the king. When you're a king, you tax. It goes to the king for his pleasure to spend the way he wants to do. In democracy, the tax base goes to a big pot and gets spread out to whoever shouts the most. And everyone's at risk.
I just think it's interesting that during World War I, the countries are getting loaned money to go to war at a subprime interest rate. And who does that? I mean, you're funding the most riskiest thing ever. And
it wasn't risky, though, because they knew afterwards they'd get bailed out no matter what, because now we have, like here, we had the Federal Reserve, the lender of last resort. So all these countries were able to pay their bills back because we loaned them money. Tens of billions of dollars, which ultimately created the big bubble that went boom. And the world fell into the Great Depression. Had none of that happened, well, first of all, we wouldn't have had the war. If they would have just let things go the way they ought to have, they would have never had the Great Depression. Places that needed to fail would have failed. Bankruptcies that needed to happen would have happened. Things would have turned around. We're doing the same thing today. at a rate that's unreal.
All right, the world's
There's
only
no
had,
risk.
We've only ever had 2 depressions since the history of mankind. The Long Depression and the Great Depression. And their causes are almost exactly the same.
And we're in the same thing right now. And it's take as much as you can from the cows before it hits. That's all that's going on right now. There's no law. There's no governance. There's no nothing. It's, dang it, I almost said the Wild West, but that's wrong. It's the wild government. There's no longer anything restraining them from doing anything they want to do. Doesn't the Constitution demand and require that the United States government have a budget? How basic is that?
The government, or the Constitution also, though, demands that government shall make no law.
Oh,
expecting, the entire Bill of Rights, right? We're not supposed to have unreasonable searches and seizures. We're supposed to be secure in our persons and effects and papers.
Yeah, but that's for those cows. I'm talking about for them. Their own document that they're supposed to follow. Don't worry about the 10 Bill of Rights for the cows. I'm talking about just for them. Requires them to have a budget. And how many years has it been? And they all say, well, Mr. President, when are you going to give us a budget? Congress, that's your job. There is no law anymore. We're living actually in a state of
decree,
anarchy. Except for the bad description of it in the dictionary.
I was going to say, this doesn't feel like no government. This feels like...
No, I mean in the chaotic sense. They're living in a chaotic sense of whatever is pleasing to those people is what they do. There's no stopping them.
I wouldn't say that's anarchy, though. That's autocratic decree. That's fiat.
There's 3 definitions of it. One of them is chaos. And that's what we have. Plus, I'm just trying to mess with it.
Oh, you're trying to mess with the... Oh, okay. Now I understand. You got it on Patriots. Actually, hour 1 here we call the Saturday morning wake-up call. If you'd like to join us, the number is 458-TALK, 458-8255. You can also poke your head in the chat room, KFAR660.com.
Keep it here for Fox News, next on KFAR.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. An attorney for the Texas man arrested on charges of possessing bomb-making material says his client will plead not guilty and had no connection to the explosion in his town that killed 15 people last month.
Bryce Reed, the EMT from the town of West Texas near Waco, is still in federal custody. He was on duty the night the fertilizer plant exploded, but so far federal agents say they have no link between Reed and the explosion.
Fox Radio's Evan Brown.
The event has long been considered an accident, but Friday, Texas state officials announced plans for a criminal investigation to feature the Texas Rangers to be extra sure.
And a hostage situation continues in Trenton, New Jersey, where police say an armed man holding multiple people has been in a standoff with cops since late Friday afternoon. Homes on the surrounding block evacuated as a precaution. Fox News, we report, you decide.
We report it, you respond to it. Fairbanks is listening. This is Local Talk Radio, 660 AM.
Every town has its ups and downs. Sometimes ups outnumber the downs. But not in Nottingham. I'm inclined to believe if we weren't so down, we'd up and leave. We'd up and fly if we had wings for flying. Can't you see the tears we're crying? Can't there be some happiness for me? Not in Nottingham.
And welcome back to the Saturday morning wake-up call, hour 1 of Patriots Lament. Here in the studio with us, as always, we've got Josh Bennett and Aaron Bennett. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What a beautiful day outside.
You know, can I ask you a question? I mean, seriously, you're talking about the way things are going right now. At what point can we reasonably expect the government just to start doing what they did with that company this week and say, you know, basically they seized the entire intellectual property of that company and said, now you go to that website and it says everything on this site belongs to the government. At what point is that going to start happening to our bank accounts? At what point is that going to start happening to our own private property? I mean, could they do that with gold?
No. History's never seen that happen.
They did it in the 1930s to gold, didn't they?
Yeah.
And if you're a good citizen, you just turn it in, right?
Well, of course. You're a good cow. You always march up to the trough.
Or you bury it in your backyard.
For a later date.
Kind of reminds me of guns.
That company not only had a gun or whatever, I think it was a lot further. I think they stopped them from a lot more reasons, and I think it was from corporations wanted them shut down. Because if you see their website, I don't know what it has on there now, but basically these guys were trying to revolutionize the world with these 3D digital printers and build prosthetics for people. Basically, let's take everything that is scarcity, which is government-induced scarcity to protect these little businesses and these big businesses and blah, blah, blah. A false scarcity. I mean, we already have enough scarce resources without the state, but the state creates so many of these scarcities to protect big corporations. And these guys, their stated goal on their website was like, we're going to end the scarcity. These things that should be easy for people to get and acquire, and one of the things was prosthetics. They had a prosthetic hand that they were working on and limbs and all this stuff. We're going to do it. And we're going to make it available to everyone in the world that has a computer, which, I mean, you could get those machines cost anywhere from $1,500 to $8,000. Well, how hard is that to get if you get 20 people together, even to buy the $8,000 one? Hey, guys, if we have this machine, this is going to be really big. We could save ourselves a lot of money or help ourselves do a lot of things. Let's chip in and buy this thing. That was their stated goal, was to make things that are scarce now not scarce anymore. The artificial scarcities. I think that has more to do with why they confiscated their intellectual property than anything. I'm positive of it. Because the gun they made, I mean, you can go online anywhere, and even before the internet, you could go down just about any gun show or whatever and get a little piece of paper that showed you how to make the Patriot's Peace Pipe, which is a 12-gauge shotgun made out of a couple pieces of pipe. And you can go on the internet and find all kinds of stuff about how to make semi-automatic guns and fully automatic guns and all kinds of stuff. So
the Patriot's Peace Pipe.
I know, that was sweet. So I think it was more to do than just the fact that these guys made a plastic gun that was a single shot. And of course the whole world's going, ooh, the terrorists will have these weapons now. Oh, what a joke. I mean, terrorists can think of things on their own. They don't need to get...
No, they can't.
Oh, they can't? They have to go to American websites to figure out how to do stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
That's how they learn how to make bombs.
The guys that are riding on goats with no shoes and don't have enough grain or rice to feed their kids, those guys? They're going to go buy a digital printer?
Yeah, and make bombs and stuff.
I don't even think they have internet, much less digital printers. Sorry. I know. I should be more afraid of the Muslim invasion, but I'm just, no matter how much I listen to Glenn Beck, I'm just not worried about it. I'm more worried about the D.C. invasion.
Well, the Koreans might invade.
They might.
At any point in time. I mean, at any minute. I did see Red Dawn, and it happens.
In the movies.
They could pull it off. No, they can't. They can't pull it off. I mean, so many false flags to get us all, run afeared, run away, be scared. Bull. I'm calling them out. I'm not scared of these people. And neither are they. I guarantee that the United States military, Barack Obama, none of those guys are afraid of North Korea at all. Because we could take everything away that we have and just have one Trident submarine floating around in the depths of the ocean and still be like the most powerful military in the world. Because that's 24 nuclear missiles with 10 bombs on each one. 10. We've been going around and around this for too long. Okay, I'll give it to you. 12. So you do the math on that. My math was easier. 240. 240 nuclear weapons on one submarine. We're not scared of North Korea, who can't not only feed their people, they don't have cars that work. I mean, their machines are run off gerbils and stuff like that. They launch missiles, they go up in the air, and they fall back down on the ground. We never get to hear about those. We only hear the one, hey, they actually made it off the ground. We're scared. Run away. It's all a false flag situation to make us scared so they can keep pillaging us. Oh, look, if we weren't doing this, though, North Korea would get you. That guy in Pakistan riding the goat with no shoes could be here tomorrow.
He's got his eyes on you right now.
He does. Without the protection of the state and our drones flying around your house, you could die.
So if you've got that much nuclear power on one submarine, what is it that stops that submarine commander from going rogue and just deciding that, hey, I'm just going to go ahead and end the world. I'm sick of life. I'm going to go ahead and blow up this city. I'm going to knock the entire world back. I'm going to make sure one of them goes apart.
They don't have independent control over the
I don't think they
launches
do.
anyway.
I hope they don't.
Did you hear about the 17 top military in, where was it, North Dakota, that were removed of their ability to have access to nuclear codes? That just happened this week, too. I don't know if it's a purge in terms of trying to get people out of the way that will not obey commands, that believe that you actually have to have justification before launching nuclear weapons.
No,
or if there have been 17 people with their hand on the nuclear trigger all this time that are just kind of crazy, and they're just finally now getting rid of them.
Crazy people in the government?
Oh, well.
No, I hadn't heard that. That's interesting. I always kind of worry about those things when you see a purge, like you just called it. I always wonder exactly what you just said. Are they removing people to put people in there that will do what they tell them to do? That's the one I'm going with.
That would be the most historically accurate one.
Yeah.
Well, again, the whole aspect of needing to have more than one person able to make the decision that, hey, we're going to go and kill hundreds of thousands of people with the push of a button. I don't know, you'd kind of want people in there who, at least I would want people in there who aren't yes men. People who don't just say, yes, sir, yes, let's go kill them all, but to have more thoughtful people to say, hey, well, what are the ramifications if we take out this city here? How many millions of people are going to die for you to make that statement, sir?
As long as it's for American interests, it's not a big deal, Steve.
No, or if they're brown.
America.
Unless they're brown.
Right, but that would be for American interests if they're brown. Turn it all to glass.
What I see, USA means under surveillance always. USA. Yeah, speaking of back with the bank stuff, we would strongly suggest that if you have money in the bank or too much or whatever, you can't live without the money that you have in your bank account, you might want to start thinking about taking it out. Calling for a bank run. No. But we're at a point where Cyprus could happen here at any moment. There's no doubt. The government is broke.
And for people who don't know what happened to Cyprus, basically the government stepped in and said, if you have X amount of money or more, it now belongs to the government.
Right.
They just seized it, just like our government did with the websites of that company this week.
Yep. It's exactly the same thing. And the reason they use the bank is because that's real simple. You just press a button, bink, and that wealth is gone. no more. If you don't have it in there, they can't take it. I mean, that was the first thing the Cypriots, I think they're Cypriots, did, was they were running to the ATMs like, oh, get it out quick, because they closed the banks. And they were able to get $300 or $400 out at a time. The lines were 100 miles long. If you owned an ATM there at that time, you were probably the only person in Cyprus that had any wealth by the end of the day, charging $2 a transaction. But it could happen here real easy, and it's not like someone's going to come out and say, hey, well, we're gonna see some bank accounts because we're broke. So just giving you a heads up. You need to know what's going on out here. So go take your money out of the bank real quick, because tomorrow morning you're just going to wake up and it's over.
Well, what's more likely to happen is we'll wake up and find a bank holiday has been declared, and we cannot access your money.
Yeah.
And even, I mean, the way so many banks now have electronic transactions, it's kind of made the whole banking hours obsolete to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Even that can be easily shut down. I mean, why are they pursuing the internet kill switch with such glee?
That's disturbing.
I think because the internet is such a huge educational outlet.
The internet's the single most, I think right now, what you just said, it's the single most threat to the state at this time, right?
No, Josh. The Second Amendment is.
No, I think information is.
Oh.
Information's king, right? Is that person actually...
How many... Well, we've had a phone yet. So.
Okay, that's good. All of a sudden, it's like...
I just realized that person's been on there for an awful long time. If you think about it, though, realistically... It's not just a matter of controlling guns. If that were the case, then when the British came to take the weapons store at Lexington or Concord or wherever that was, that started the actual revolution, the first battle, then it wouldn't have been an issue. They just would have sent in more troops and squashed the rebellion. But the idea that man should be free, the idea that the king had overstepped his bounds imposed by God in the way he was treating his loyal subjects, the idea that somehow we didn't have to pay the tax that the king said just because the king said, that had already spread around, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that once the cat is out of the bag, intellectually speaking, it's only a matter of time before the regime falls. So it's not about guns. It's not about even the internet as much as it's about the idea. The problem is, right now, how do people get information except from the internet? Do they get it from the TV?
Everything the government's able to do right now, usurp the Constitution, usurp any natural rights, all those things come from, they're still from the same thing that led the colonists to rebel. It's the way they viewed it. As long as people view the government as legitimate, those things will continue to happen. It doesn't matter how many guns you have and how many Second Amendments you have. All that matters is how the government's legitimacy is viewed.
Really? If we didn't have... What if we had 2 Second Amendments?
What if we had 5?
What if we had 10 of them? What if we had 4 constitutions?
What if the Nazis would have had a Second Amendment?
Oh. Would have been over.
Wait, which of the amendments actually can stop a bullet?
What's one?
All of them combined, if you put them together.
I'm just curious because
is it thick enough
at some point, this right here. No, it's the wrong one. That's the Alaska State Constitution. This one, look how much of a nerd I am. I keep copies of the Constitution right there.
If you kept that in your pocket, it might stop a bullet.
This right here, but even if I did, it's still just a piece of paper. Not using that amendment anymore.
What if you wrote it on
or that
Kevlar, each one, and then pressed them together? Then they could stop it.
How many amendments is there?
Like 20-some now.
Oh, yeah, that's enough plies to stop a bullet.
Actually, all the most of the amendments basically are just to empower the central government, not...
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was distracted by Angry Bob.
I can tell.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You're on the air still.
Yeah,
did you just completely derail? We could go to the phones if you like.
Let's do that.
458 Talk is the number. Good morning, caller. Who's
Angry
this?
Bob is angry.
Hi, this is Hillbilly.
Billy, what's on your mind today?
Well, you had a thought there about how powerful America is, and yet how we could collapse once the idea of freedom is reborn in enough people. But even though it's dark and sticky and smelly and nasty, I want you to climb into Obama's head for a minute, or any of the leaders that you want to think of as the leaders or even the owners of our present regime, okay? Now, whereas Assad in Syria, he's kind of limited in what he can do to his people because somebody bigger than him is right around the corner and can stop him. But there ain't nobody bigger than America, and there ain't nobody going to stop America from cracking down on its people. Nobody. Because of what you just said. We got the biggest military, and nobody can touch us. So what you have to think about is this. If the people are becoming awake, if there's any hope at all that the people are going to become awake, then you have to climb into that nasty, filthy head of your opponent and say, what do you think they're going to do about it? Do you think they're going to allow the people of this country to rise up and regain their freedom? I say that the closer we get, the more people we wake up, the more likely a total crackdown and tyranny becomes, because it's the only option. They're not going to let you overthrow their tyranny without a fight, and you've admitted yourself they have a lot of firepower if they decide to fight.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt in my mind. These guys aren't... they're not going to play nice. I mean, they're not... once you have power, it's very rare that you willingly cede it to anything or anyone. And they're not going to, I don't think.
And like the Declaration of Independence says, people will suffer tyranny as long as it's sufferable.
Right.
So we have these factors which lead me to believe that it will grow in tyranny, and maybe some people will rise up against it, but they won't be successful. And so what we have to face is that absolute tyranny is right around the corner. It ain't going to be a rising up of the people to vote them out, and they're going to go, oh, okay, we voted this out. I guess you're going to put Ron Paul in there, or whatever. It ain't going to be like that. The closer we get to standing up for ourselves, the closer the bully is to pounding you on the head. So, what's your solution to that conundrum?
Well, I don't think that they have ultimately, I don't think that they can sustain themselves. I mean, eventually you run out of resources. They can.
Not if you take them from other people. They won't run out of resources before you do. The soldiers won't run out of food before you do.
Well, the other part of it, too, though, is that we're 300 million. They're much smaller. It doesn't matter how much firepower you have. When the people decide to be free, they become free. The colonists fought the most powerful army in the world. And yes, I know they didn't have nukes, and it was kind of we had gunpowder cannons and black powder rifles that went 50 feet. They still defeated the most powerful army and navy in the world because they chose to be free. And I don't doubt that things will get harder and much more drastic, and that the state will come down on people that wish to be free in the full fury and power that the state has. But when the people decide to pull their legitimacy away from that state,
that is the key.
When the people decide that they're no longer going to, quote unquote, comply and give their consent to that state, it will collapse.
And what's the only thing that contributes to taking that tacit support away? There's only one thing, and that's the hearts and minds. That's what we're doing right now, trying to trying to get under the skin, get into the mind, and expose the state for what it is. It's just a system of plunder.
What gives a bully power? I mean, you didn't do public school, right, Josh?
To third grade. I was the bully, though.
You were the bully. Yeah. All right. Well, maybe you can answer from my perspective. I got bullied when I was in elementary school all the way up into high school, primarily because I was, shocking, a nerd. I had a big stack of books that I carried around with me, and I was a little chubby, and I gave plenty of fuel for people to make fun of. But what I found was giving the bullies the power was the fact that as they bullied me, they received support from my classmates. They were getting, it was the laughter of their classmates
at
my expense that kept them in power.
Right, if they would have been ostracized for it, they wouldn't have done it.
And that's what ended up happening when I finally stood up for myself in 9th grade, I believe it was. I remember very clearly this incident where the bully was I had enough, and I was standing there nose to nose with him, and I knew I wasn't going to fight him physically. I knew that if we got into it, that I would be pummeled. So what I did is I provoked him verbally. I stood there and I mocked him verbally. I attacked him where he was most vulnerable, which was his intellectual ability. And I pointed out how his limited reasoning had led him to that course of action. And I was doing this in front of a large crowd of people who just kept getting bigger and bigger, because you know how it is. Somebody stands up to a bully, people will come and watch. And the more I stood up to him, the more empowered I got, and more bold I got. And to be quite honest, the meaner I got in what I said to him. So that finally he was just so frustrated and so embarrassed that he resorted the only way he could with violence, and he kicked me squarely in the tenders. I mean, I'm just, wow. The impact all the way up into my throat. I mean, I fell, collapsed to the ground, and the reaction of the other people to that bully changed his life. Because now, all of a sudden, he was the target. What'd you do that for?
Well, that makes for a good analogy, and I sure do hope you're right, but I think you're wrong. I think that this beast is diverse from every other beast, like the Bible says, and it's going to be a matter of who can fight against the beast, and the answer is going to be nobody. I think this is the beast that is talked about in the Bible. I think that we, America, was the last chance for Christianity, and I just think you're wrong. I think they're going to just hold back food. They can cut us off in a heartbeat. They can cut off all the cities in a heartbeat. And the hearts and minds of the people don't mean anything when they're starving. They'll cow.
I don't think that this government. I don't think this government is the biblical beast myself, and I also don't think that they have the means to do. They have the means to do things to a certain point for a certain time, but they are mere people, and until the devil himself is in charge of, or physically in charge of whatever nation or state becomes the beast.
Even if
these are mere mortal men,
even if
I'm
it
not
is the
worried
beast,
about.
don't we have a duty to stand up against it?
I certainly believe we have a duty to stand up against it.
that.
I'm just saying we shouldn't be optimistic about the idea and live in a fantasy world where we're going to rise up and change things.
Well, I don't necessarily think we're going to rise up and change anything, but I think that Fairbanks, Alaska can be different.
Sure.
And I think Fairbanks, Alaska is going to be different when they don't give us any food.
I think that
people won't grow their own. I mean, if I saw people growing their own food, that'd be one thing. See, in the Revolution,
people do
couldn't
things
cut off our food.
People do things under necessity, though, just because they don't.
But there won't be time. If they cut off our food today, then in 3 days, people will be starving to death. You're not going to have time to grow food this summer. When they hit you, it's going to be like that. And nobody's going to stand up against them. People are going to line up at the food bank if that's the only place that's got food. If the government is the only place to get it, and the government and Walmart are the same thing, it doesn't have to be any kind of physical change take place that you can even see. All they got to do is say, if you're not compliant, you don't eat. If you don't have the mark, you don't eat. And people will comply.
A lot of people will. There's no doubt about that. I think a lot of people won't. And I
Just
still
remember,
think,
the Bible says that Satan is granted the power to trample the saints in these last days, and I believe that's what's coming. Now, I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I'm hoping this is only a temporary thing.
It's a good thing the Patriots didn't think that way.
And every single
a lot
generation.
Of my people did. My people left Philadelphia in 1769 and went to Missouri, and my people have been in Missouri ever since. I saw this coming, and I came up here, and I won't stand in the breadline. Don't worry, I won't stand in the breadline.
I think every generation has to face whether or not they're going to stand up to the tyranny. If we had lived in Nazi Germany in 1933, 1934, I think I probably would have been pretty close to fully convinced that Adolf Hitler was the Antichrist. I would have been fairly convinced that system that people were living under was the beast, and I would have been fully convinced, especially in terms of the hatred of the Jews and the systematic destruction of that people, that either we had to stand up or get trampled, or else flee.
And ultimately, we have to resist no matter what, right? It doesn't matter, even if this is the end times, if this is the beast, we still resist it. And guess what? We can be optimistic because
we win eventually, right?
We win.
On a spiritual level, absolutely, yeah. Well, all I'm saying is that if you're Christian, the Bible tells you how to resist, and it isn't by staying in the cities and fighting them. It is by fleeing to the hills. Now, again, if this is not that particular time, well, then we'll get by one more time. There'll be another time coming. I just happen to think this is the last one.
This might be it.
It might be.
Yeah, exactly. And that cheery note, we're coming up on the Fox News here at the top of the hour. You've got it on Local Talk Radio, KFAR Online, KFAR660.com. Harry Street's Lament, another hour on the way.
Don't touch that dial. Fairbanks is listening. 660 AM.
I love you, Mom.
Happy Mother's Day from the little kid in all of us.
I love you, Mom.
660 on your AM dial.
If you love wealth better than liberty, the tranquility of servitude better than the animating contest of freedom, go from us in peace. We ask not your counsels or your arms. Crouch down and lick the hands which feed you. May your chains set lightly upon you, and may posterity forget that you were our countrymen. Samuel Adams.
The time is near at hand, which must determine whether Americans are to be free men or slaves. George Washington.
And what country can preserve its liberties if its rulers are not warned from time to time that this people preserve the spirit of resistance? Let them take arms. The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. Thomas Jefferson.
Posterity, you will never know how much it cost the present generation to preserve your freedom. I hope you will make good use of it. If you do not, I shall repent in heaven that ever I took half the pains to preserve it. John Adams.
I sincerely believe that banking establishments are more dangerous than standing armies, and that the principle of spending money to be paid by posterity under the name of funding is but swindling futurity on a large scale. Thomas Jefferson.
Government is instituted to protect property, this being the end of government. That alone is a just government, which impartially secures to every man whatever is his own. That is not a just government, nor is property secure under it, where arbitrary restrictions, exceptions, and monopolies deny to part of its citizens the free use of their own faculties. James Madison.
It would be an absurdity for jurors to be required to accept the judge's view of the law against their own opinion, judgment, and conscience. John Adams.
Whenever the legislators endeavored to take away and destroy the property of the people, or to reduce them to slavery under arbitrary power, they put themselves into a state of war with the people, who are thereupon absolved from any further obedience, and are left to the common refuge which God hath provided for all men against force and violence. John Locke.
It is in vain, sir, to extenuate the matter. Gentlemen may cry, peace, peace, but there is no peace. the war has actually begun. The next gale that sweeps from the north will bring to our ears the clash of resounding arms. Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here, idle? What is it that gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is life so dear, or peace so sweet, as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take, but for me, give me liberty, or give me death. Patrick Henry.
My people perish for the lack of knowledge. God.
Some people you can never please. You might as well just let them be. They mock everything not their own from their imaginary throne. But I won't bow down even if the whole world thinks I'm crazy. So hey, this song is for us. So put your hands in the air if you're crazy like us. Hey, that's freedom you hear, coming right to your ear. That's the sound from our bus. Hey.
All right, welcome to Patriots Lament right here on KFAR. It's Local Talk Radio 660 on your AM dial. As always, the folks in the studio today include myself, Steve Floyd, the man with the face made for radio. We've got Aaron Bennett and we've got Josh Bennett. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning,
Good
Steve.
morning, Steve.
And we also have some guests in the studio. I'd like to introduce them, Josh.
Yes, we have our friends Rita and Don in here today. They got a little tale to tell about our wonderful city of Fairbanks, living here. And, well, we're just going to let them share their story, and we're going to ponder that this could happen to anyone. Rules don't matter, laws don't matter.
It does happen to people.
This does happen to anyone. Go ahead, Rita.
Thanks, Josh. Good morning. Yes, my name is Rita, and we have lived here in Alaska for 55 years. We lived in our home for 37 years. And in 2005, we were taken to court because the government decided that we owed money. There was no proof, there was nothing, but apparently, like Josh said, they don't need it. In 2008, we were evicted from the house, and we filed bankruptcy and eventually moved back in because they abandoned the property. Nothing happened. We did not hear from them. We did not get any communication. We never saw anybody. We tried contacting them. We wrote, we called, but nothing. Last August, we were just on our way out. My husband had just left the house, and I was following him when there were 3 armed marshals telling us that we had to vacate the house. We had a few minutes to grab our animals and
medication
and some clothing and medication. I asked them why, and what they had was a 2008 court order, which had already been complied with, and that was not applicable at that point in time. But how do you argue with 3 marshals who are armed? And at our age, no. So we were told to get off the property, and if we were caught to get back on the property, that we would be arrested. I asked what was happening to all the property that was there. And one of the marshals said, well, they have contracted with one of the moving companies, and everything will be moved out and put in storage.
Mini storage.
At first, it was supposed to be in mini storage. Subsequently, they found that 20,000 pounds did not fit into mini storage, and they got one of the regular moving companies to move the property. When we checked on it, we were told that the government was paying for 30 days storage on the property, and that we had one day during that time to pick up our property. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you know what the weather is like in September. We tried to get at least some clothing, and we were told we had one day to come in and get everything. But we had no place to put anything. We didn't have friends who had enough space to put it, not with the rain and the weather the way it was, so we ended up putting it up to auction. So we have very little. We have a few necessities left, but everything else went. We then filed for bankruptcy again. Bankruptcy seems to stay the proceedings for a while, but they don't have to, like Josh says, follow the law. There are certain procedures that the government has to follow, and they did not do so. We ended up getting ruled against in the lower court. We have gone up to the higher court, and that is where it is standing right now. But in the meantime, the house is going up on the block next week. And this is something that can happen to anybody. We have to follow the rules, and they should follow the rules. And they have rules that tell them exactly what they can and cannot do. But it doesn't seem to matter. Any questions?
Oh, you're doing good.
It is scary that anything like this can happen.
No, some of the property wasn't ours.
Oh, yes. Don reminded me. Besides the property that they took and put in storage, they also took, Don had been raising bees for many, many years. They took the bees and the bee equipment. We had 10 chickens, laying hens. They took those and gave them to somebody.
The things that weren't
We
ours.
had a 1946 Taylorcraft, a snow machine, a friend's vehicle, a coin collection, plate collection, glass collection, jewelry. We figured out by itemizing there are roughly $100,000 worth of personal property that has disappeared. They did admit in their filings that they had taken some property and were going to sell it to offset what they claim we owe. But we have never gotten an inventory list from them, and we don't know if anything is in the house, because we were also told that they were changing the locks on the doors.
I wonder if we flash back to the 1930s, how many Jews we could have had on this show that would have been telling the same story, almost identical.
Well, there is a booklet out. It says the 40 years of Roosevelt. And reading that, it didn't change one bit from Teddy to Franklin, and it hasn't changed a bit from Franklin to today.
History repeats itself.
History repeats itself.
Rita, are you an American? Because you sound like you're from somewhere else.
I am American. I was born and raised in Germany. And that's another thing. When I came over, we had to have a sponsor. My parents had to have a certain amount of money. And before I became an American, I had to learn the Constitution and a few other things that I think has gotten lost along the way. Yes, we had to knock on the door and come in. We couldn't just come across the river.
What year did you come?
1958.
So your family would have lived through the war in Germany?
Yes.
Wow. And they decided to come here to be free.
He had been, his parents had been
No,
here.
actually, my parents met and married in New York.
Oh, cool.
My brother was born in New York, and then subsequently, my parents decided to go back to Germany. And when my brother turned 18, he had the choice of either coming back or lose his citizenship. So he came back, and of course, Uncle Sam was standing there with open arms. And he joined the military and ended up getting sent up here in the Army. And he fell in love with Alaska, and he stayed here until he passed in 2000.
Can't blame him for that. Falling in love with this country is easy to do. Rita, I'm kind of curious. Some of what you're describing sounds almost exactly what happened to the Japanese Americans in the internment. I actually was just watching last night. There was a special on, I think it was, it was on the public television station. I found myself watching KUIC last night on the internment of Japanese Americans. They were Americans, and yet because racially they were of Japanese descent, they were rounded up. I mean, it's the same kind of thing as like the decrees that we were talking about in the last hour about gold. They just put decrees up and said, report yourself.
What happened to all their possessions?
Gone, man. Taken. When they went back to their land afterwards, hey, you're free to go. They went back to their farms to find that their farms had been taken over by squatters or their property had been destroyed. Gone.
Well, Steve, I don't think, ours is because of nationality. Ours is because we have dared to question what they're doing and dare tell them that they have to follow their rules. And you don't do that because we are ruled by fear and intimidation. And it's not that I'm right, but it's because I said so.
That is a nationalist mentality, though. If it wasn't for everybody seeing that we're all in this together, we're all part of the system, there is no individuality, then you deserve what you got. It's basically the consensus.
Yeah, it does have to do with nationality, the fact that you're an American.
Thank you.
Land of the
and white to
fleeced,
boot,
and the the IRS I despise with everything in my body, and most people in America, if they're decent at all, despises the IRS. We have stories about the IRS here this last week where they were they admitted and apologized that they were specifically targeting conservative groups over the last election with I don't know exactly what they were doing, but there were anybody that had Tea Party in their organization, Tea or Party, or they had Patriot, they were targeting specifically to try to weasel them out and get them in trouble with the IRS. And here recently, this week they came out and admitted that, and they said, "Oh well, we're sorry, yeah, we made a mistake, but whatever." I mean, the point of bringing that up is that I already know there's people out there right now listening to Rita and Don's story, and they're saying, well, like what Aaron just said, you got what you deserved.
You must have done something.
You must have done something
wrong.
But that's not true. It doesn't necessarily have to be true, because the IRS just admitted themselves that they were doing things to people that had done nothing wrong, but they specifically were targeting certain peoples. Now, is that against the rules? Is that against the law?
It is.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they have to follow the rules because
they do what they want.
They do what they want. And you know what? If they found that they have done something that is against the rules, all they have to do is go back and change the rules. And in fact, they can make what you are doing today perfectly legal, perfectly fine. They can make that against the rules tomorrow, just so they can get you in trouble.
Well, this is what somebody said a long time ago. It doesn't matter how perfect a tax return, let's even go on that, you file, they can find where you didn't dot the I or cross the T.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and I've been told many, many years ago, there is no such thing as a perfect return if they want to find something.
Except for mine. Don't have to look. Mine are perfect.
There you go. and the scary thing is you go to court and you think, well, we're going to get justice. No, because neither the IRS nor the court will address the issues. They go right around them, they ignore them, and go right back to point A, and we totally ignore point B, C, D, or anything else. And I have documentation of it, questions, things that they have to follow, things that they have to do. We don't even go there, we ignore it.
No, but this kind of goes to something that we talk about all the time. How does that judge get paid? The taxes that the IRS steals from people pays that judge. And who pays the judge? Same people that pay the IRS agent. So you have a buddy system where they're all intertwined, where they have to protect each other. Otherwise, it unravels. So you're not going to get a judge to say that some stinking American, the milk cow, is correct, because then he's slashing his own wrist. He's cutting into his own pay. They're not going to do it. We have a system in America, in the United States, where the system is set up where they make the rules, they change the rules, they don't follow the rules, and they arbitrarily decide who's correct in the course of any litigation. Well, when you go to a judge and say that I think the IRS is wrong, he's working for the same government that the IRS is. So you're asking him to decide against himself. It's not going to happen. And no matter what you folks out there say that, well, they deserved it and this or that, or, they didn't play by the rules and we have to have it, whatever. Those kind of people make me sick. You're disgusting. You need to go somewhere else. I don't need to leave. You need to leave.
It reminds me of slaves who are so accustomed to being beaten themselves that if they see somebody else who, even whether they did something wrong or didn't do something wrong, they take glee in seeing someone else getting beaten because it's not them.
The question you should ask is this right? Is it right that in the United States, forget that word, in America, that Americans that have worked all their lives, you guys, I'll just ask Don. Don, how old are you?
78.
Don's 78 years old. He's worked all his life for a piece of property and a home to call his, and we were guaranteed protection of property when this government was started. And yet, this same government can come arbitrarily, because you don't play by their rules, supposedly, that they break, and steal your property. So the question really is it correct, is it right that they have the power to steal your property just because they say that you're wrong? That's the real question. This is wrong. We live in America. No one should be able to take your property.
If we were going to go sign a contract with a protection agency, and that is our social contract with the federal government, is our protection agency, right? But anybody sign a contract with a protection agency or an insurance agency, so to speak, if the contract was written out that they wouldn't tell you what service they were going to provide, they won't tell you how much they're going to charge you for it, and they won't tell you exactly what the rules are, and they reserve the right to change the rules at any time. Would anybody hire that firm?
Never.
No, but don't forget, they have to go by rules, whereas the IRS, the government, rules by fear and intimidation.
Right, that's exactly right.
Force and power.
Force and power. If you don't do as I say, you could even do this to your kids. I told my kids years ago, well, why? It's because I'm mom. But I couldn't have done to them what's being done to us. I would like to also point out one more thing. When they sell property, they don't have title to it. We have title to our property. We have a allodial title to our property, and we have a homestead exemption to our property. So if they do go ahead and sell it, or somebody would want to buy it, what are they getting? The IRS can give them quitclaim title, conveying what they have, and they have nothing, which means we can turn around actually and sue the people buying the property. And why has that not done before? There again, people don't know.
You know, you just sparked something in my mind. If I went downtown and then somebody said, "Hey, Steve, you want to buy a stereo system?" and pulled up in the back of his van and got a couple of stereo systems that very obviously had been ripped out of somebody else's car, I would be held liable for trafficking in stolen property if I bought that.
That's right.
Why on earth would anyone buy something from the IRS?
Well, also, why would a moving company come in and move out all the property that they know belongs to somebody? And why would somebody come and remove personal property from the property, like the plane, the snow machine, the van, and whatever else,
That wasn't
that we
ours.
don't even know where all of it is, but somebody had to come and put it in storage.
And does anybody wonder why the government fights so hard to keep the monopoly on the use of force?
Control.
Their contract would be pretty void pretty quick if they didn't keep that monopoly.
Exactly.
Well, Aaron, the whole thing is, it doesn't take much. If people would just pay attention to what's going on, and if nobody can fight the whole system, nobody would be willing to do what we've been doing. Believe me, it's not been easy. But we have done it is because we believe in what is right. And being right can be extremely expensive. We have paid the price on health, financially, with a home, emotionally.
Living on the street for 7 months.
And being literally on the street for 7 months. No, not too many people are willing to do that. But people, you don't have to do much. Just start asking questions and say no when you see something is wrong.
Otherwise, we'll end up with a lot more Jews on this show.
Yeah. Well, or the modern day equivalent. I mean, whether it's actually Jews that get their property taken, or whether it's anybody that the government decides is persona non grata.
And anyone that goes down to, when this sale happens, to try to buy this stolen piece of property, I'm just going to call them a dirty dog right now. Because that's what they are. The IRS doesn't win until the tacit support of the people happen.
Yeah.
And the complicit support, and people show up at the auction and buy the property from the IRS that was stolen from Americans just like them. If no one would show up to the auction, what would happen then?
Nothing gets sold.
What if no one shows up? That's what I'd like to see happen. Just one time in my life, to have an IRS auction and no one shows up, and they say no more of this crap. This is not happening to Americans on American soil. The most precious right that we have, that we've talked about on this show for 2 years now. 3 years now, on Steve's show going back. The right to property. That is the fundamental right of man, but that's a fundamental right of an American. We fought a war, a revolution over the right to private property.
What if people showed up to the IRS auction and mocked the IRS agents?
No, I'm all for that.
What if
Not
they
with
showed up?
guns
No,
and
no,
none of
no,
that
no.
crap.
Just showed up and mocked them and pointed out what thieves
Call
and
'em
worms
thieves.
and just, I know, it's like, hey, did your mom have something like this happen to them? You know,
Getting people back. You know, Richard Mayberry has a great, I think it's a 2-part thing on YouTube, and he talks about how to win the second revolution, right? And it's totally in a peaceful way. And he shows and points out how mere mockery of the system would go so far
and
to merely make
mock,
fun of them.
mock the people, mock the agents.
Yes.
Mock the ones who are getting paid.
They don't
to
like
go and
that.
take somebody else's thing. Your mother must be so proud of you. You know, I really hope somebody's doing to your mom what you're doing to Rita right now.
God bless America. America. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but how they get around that, too, they have a website,
Who does? The IRS?
the IRS.
Uh-huh.
And that's where they post properties. So if anything happens here, they figure they can get away with it there.
They cover their bases to make sure that they've got it posted in more than one place so that they can still steal it out from under you. All right, folks, we are up against the Fox News here at the bottom of the hour.
Do you guys mind if we take calls after the break? All right.
All right, stay with us. We're going to the phones. All 4 lines are on hold right now, so keep trying. 458-TALK, 458-8255. You've got it on Patriots Lament on KFAR, local talk radio.
Fair, balanced, Fox. Now on KFAR.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. All three women in the decades-long Ohio abduction case now out of the hospital. The last one released.
Michelle Knight, who police say suffered multiple miscarriages due to the beating she endured from Castro, was released from the hospital Friday. She's at an unknown location and has not yet had any contact with her family.
Fox's Garrett Tenney in Cleveland.
The suspect in this case, 52-year-old Ariel Castro, remains in custody at the Cuyahoga County Jail in downtown Cleveland and is under suicide precaution with round-the-clock monitoring. DNA tests prove Castro is the father of Amanda Berry's 6-year-old daughter.
And the cult sci-fi franchise Star Wars. Returning to its British roots, the next film will be shot at studios in the UK. That's where the original and several others were filmed. Fox News, we report, you decide.
Local Talk Radio, KFAR, with a clear perspective on what's going on in the world, whether it's overseas or down your street. Tune in for the latest developments anytime, day or night. 660 AM, KFAR.
Welcome back to Patriots Lament right here on KFAR's Local Talk Radio. In the studio today, Rita and Don. They're telling about how they have had their house stolen from the IRS, even though they filed bankruptcy and followed all of the rules that we as American citizens are supposed to follow. And basically what we are discovering is that those in power, although they theoretically have to follow certain rules, do not follow the rules if they do not want to.
They do look scary, though.
So Rita and Don?
They could be terrorists.
Don is 78 years old.
Those are the kinds that are terrorists.
He's got a beard just like Haji.
Yep. Look, go to the airport. Who are the people they look at?
You know what? I got extra screening when I went to the airport recently.
Really?
I did. I don't know if it was...
Probably the red streak.
It might be the red in my hair. Yeah.
It's orange now.
It might be the... Rita just noticed that I have a streak.
She's leaving. Come back, Rita. Come back.
Right. Well, it might have been the fact that I was wearing an anarchist T-shirt.
Those things.
Anyway, extra screening for everyone. Are you ready to go to the phones?
Yeah, let's do it.
458-TALK is the number. Good morning, caller. Who's this?
Hello?
Hello.
Yes.
Who is this?
Token Socialist.
All right, what's on your mind?
How's it going, man?
Good, Josh. How you doing?
Good.
I've got a lot of skin in the local abuse of power game, and I just wanted to try and briefly float an idea about what to do about it, if I may.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm thinking, form a database and just start documenting all of this. And, I don't know how to use a computer, but I think it can be done with computers. And there's going to be patterns that start appearing, and I think the same names are going to show up again and again: judges, district attorneys, DOC employees, attorneys, bureaucrats, politicians, etc. And just say every 15 minutes, this is all going to be legal, nonviolent, say that again and again, but get a list and put a human face on this and identify the players in the local abuse of power game and, publicize this list. I mean, they're brave because they're in this don't ask, don't tell mode, and identify them publicly with broadsides, pamphlets, the internet, whatever, put some sunlight in on this subject, the human individuals who are actually doing this, and they can be ostracized, they can be not cooperated with. Anyone can do this, whether you're a cook at a restaurant or a waitress at a restaurant. There's a way to stand up to them. I think they're wimps, and if you actually stand up to them, they're not that tough. Some of these people who are as individuals engaged most intimately in the abuse of power game, are going to have businesses, or they're going to have associates who have businesses, and these businesses can be boycotted. And so roughly that's it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's great. I was just thinking about how
Actually,
wonderful it'd be if they walked into a restaurant and the owner or manager of the restaurant just simply went over and said, "Could you please leave? We don't want you here.
We don't serve your kind
We don't serve
here."
your kind."
Or more so.
If you make a list, though, you know, the Patriot Act might come into effect. And
I know, but just always say legal and nonviolent. I mean, I don't want to break the law anymore, because every time I break the law, it gives them power over me.
As a matter of fact, Craft Corner in Central posted a sign many years ago: "We reserve the right to refuse service to any government employee, federal employee, or anybody on that side of the street." And I don't know if that sign is still up, but I remember that being up for many, many years.
Otherwise known as welfare queens.
Ostracized.
You guys all get off, but I'm serious.
No, and we appreciate that, and it's
serious, guys.
it's a really good idea.
I appreciate you calling in, man. We're always good to hear from you.
Don made a good point. Ostracizing's been pretty effective in America before. Black people, Japanese people, Indians. It works.
Whoa.
That
guy's got power coming out of there.
All right.
No, it does work. It's an interesting theory. But I still think it'd be, how wonderful that'd be if you're just sitting there having a nice meal, and someone walks over sits down at the table next to you, and the owner comes up and says, "Please leave. We don't want you here.
We don't serve your kind."
I think another point is, if a list were made and people paid attention to what's going on in the court system, I wonder how many judges would ever be retained.
Or how many of them would want to be retained? I mean, you look at, if we made it so uncomfortable for them, so that even if it was still profitable monetarily for them to retain their office, but it was so uncomfortable for them to live in this community.
They weren't sitting on these seats of honor anymore. Yeah.
All right, you ready to take another call?
Yeah, good.
458-TALK is the number. Good morning, caller.
Why does it sound like we're in a courtroom?
Hey, guys.
Hey, David.
It's a matter of time. What?
Is it what? Who's this?
How's it going, man?
It's going all right. So I'm actually in Missouri. That guy earlier called in and said he used to live here, so that was kind of funny.
Cool. Dave Giesel on the phone. Oh, outstanding.
So the thing about the rules and them not following them, a couple months ago, I was thinking about this, and essentially I came up with this analogy. You could think of the state's purview, the area over which it's established rules, as like a checkerboard, okay? And the frontiers are all the areas that are not on the checkerboard. And the state tells you, okay, you're on our checkerboard, and here are the rules to play checkers. But the state itself is playing chess. So you're always going to lose. And you're not allowed to play by chess rules, only they are. And so when you get upset that they don't follow their own rules, they're just laughing because they taught you rules to a different game than the one that they play. But if you go off the checkerboard, which is the same board that chess is played on, of course, if you go off the board into the frontiers, poof, that's freedom. So there are a whole bunch of areas. These are frontiers, basically. This is like going west. That was a physical frontier. Yeah. There are very few physical frontiers left, but there are a lot of other frontiers where the state does not have a set of rules. They don't have their own set of rules. They don't have a phony set of rules. They teach you can be free as long as you exist in those areas and keep your property in those areas off the board.
Good. Yeah.
I love you, Dave. Thanks for calling. That's awesome.
There you go. Yep.
All right.
He's already gone?
No, are you still there, Dave? Yeah, he's gone. All right.
He just needs to come back for a little bit.
Yeah, like for a week.
Why would he want to come? You're asking him to come back onto the chessboard.
We want him to play chess with us.
Huh?
Did he move up there?
He moved to Canada,
yeah,
I think.
And right now he called from Missouri because he's on his way elsewhere.
All right. Let's go.
458. How dare he? You hear what Rita said? How dare he?
Escape the tax farm.
458-TALK is the number. Good morning, caller.
Awesome.
Good morning.
Hey, who is this?
This is Lee.
Lee, go ahead.
Rita, did you folks have an attorney dealing with the IRS?
pro se?
No, Lee, we didn't.
Couldn't afford it.
Okay.
First of all, we couldn't afford it. Number
Right.
two, could we even have found one? And number three, even if we had an attorney, I doubt that an attorney would have fought and brought up the things that we needed to bring up.
Yeah, no, I understand.
This is a small town. We have been looking for a psychiatrist for something else in this town for Don, and to go into court to testify, and there's none to be found because they will not go against anybody in this town. We think
you don't have to tell me. I was involved in a battle with the city here years ago, and the city spent over $2 million to get rid of me and one other gentleman. And when we went to court, the jury found nothing for the city. They found everything in our favor, but that doesn't mean we weren't both wiped out financially. But my next question is, did you folks pay income tax like normal people? Just, you filled out your income tax form, sent your money in or whatever, and did you play the game that way?
We paid all the taxes that we were legally required to pay.
That was something you left out in your scenario, because it puts a whole different light on that you're not tax evaders. You paid what you felt was the amount that. Did you do your own taxes, or did you have somebody help you with them?
For the past 30 years, we've done our own.
Okay, well, yeah, I sympathize with you totally. We're both in the same financial world. I empathize with you totally. And with regard to the system as a failure, I've come to the conclusion after spending my life savings trying to defend myself and winning everything except enough money to keep myself going, other than keep working. I come up with a definition of the judicial system. There is no justice, and there is no justice system. It's the judicial system designed by lawyers to make lawyers rich.
Well,
it works 99.9% of the time. The 1/10 of 1% of the time it doesn't work is when you have a complete flake of an individual that managed to get through law school and he tries to swim around amongst the other sharks in the shark pool. But justice doesn't exist, and the judicial system is all that's there. And just remember who designed it around what they designed it around themselves.
Yep. You're right.
And the politicians choose the judges from the shark pool. That is the other flaw in the ointment.
Well, Lee, the one thing is we have learned an awful lot in the research we have done, and it is scary on how we need to follow the rules and how the rules are not followed by the other side.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely right, because they all belong to the same union.
My dad, who's 92 now, has had a saying for years: the older we get, the smarter we get. It's just a damn shame we die so young.
And Glenn is right.
Keep smiling, and that's all I can say. Keep smiling, because once they take that away from you, you're doomed. And all you can do is do what you can do. And I wish you may the force be with you, and that's what we're going to need.
Thank you, Lee.
Thanks, Lee.
You bet. Bye-bye.
458 Talk is the number. Let's go to the next call. Good morning.
Hello.
Hey, who is this?
This is Steve.
Steve, what's on your mind?
Oh, not too much. That earlier caller that said, publicize the pictures and names and addresses of these people. If they're tyrants and they're breaking the law, they do the same thing with other people. They take all the sex offenders and they put out posters that somebody lives in the community and he's a convicted sex offender. Why don't we do the same thing with the bureaucracy? If they're breaking the law and they're not abiding by the Constitution, why don't the community needs to know that? Put their names and their pictures on the internet. They do the same thing with us. They do the same thing with patriots. They say we're potential domestic terrorists and give people names and go into their house just because they have guns. Well, that makes them a terrorist, and they publicize where they live, and we should be doing the same thing against them.
Okay, are you willing to start that?
No, I am. I don't know how to really go about it. I live out in the woods. I'm not too computer literate, but
maybe the other first caller can give you a call.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe guys, give us a call. We're in the phone book.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, I was up north working here just for a month or so, and when I got back, I found that the IRS has liened me for $42,000. So now I work strictly out of my my hip pocket, cash only. I can't put any money into the banks.
That's something right there
Yeah,
that
exactly.
Dave Giesel, that's one of the things that Dave Giesel basically was
Rita,
saying.
you said you're in the phone book, but we haven't given your last name today.
Okay, give Steve a call.
All right, thanks for the
While I
call.
was up in Coldfoot, I bumped into somebody, and he loaned me a book called The Law by Frederick Bastiat.
Yeah.
And I started reading some of that. And one of the first quotes that really struck my mind is perversion of the law. When the law enforcement becomes totally perverted, they commit the crimes that we put them out there to defend us against.
Hey, I'm going to need that back, by the way.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Oh, are you the guy that loaned me that? Well, that's,
Yeah.
I haven't finished reading it, but,
No, have at
yeah.
it. He's just saying that because I loaned it to him and he loaned it. No, it's all good. Go ahead and read
Well,
it and
that-
pass it on.
What?
Pass it on.
Well,
What? You're
it's like he
passing out
says,
information?
The
Free?
law is nothing. The true law is what he's saying is natural law. There are natural laws. Gravity, the sun returning in the spring. Those are laws. It doesn't matter what kind of legislation you make. That's going to continue to happen.
Yep,
But the laws that we have today are man-made, corrupt laws, and they're designed to keep a few in power and keep monopolies intact. And the rest of us are just the pawns that they play with.
Yeah,
That's all it is a law.
and we believe in our core that the same as the moon coming out at night and the sun shining during the day and the law of gravity, we believe that the law of private property is no different.
Absolutely.
Your unalienable
Absolutely.
rights are no different than the law of gravity.
And everything, like I said, while I was up there at Coldfoot, I saw all the caribou. I saw what the wolves are doing to the caribou herds, and I look at bureaucracy, and we are the caribou. We are not taking up arms and standing our ground. We run like a flock of sheep, and the wolves continue to just pick us off on the edges.
Well, and worse than that, it's worse than that. That it's not even that we don't take up arms, because I am convinced that we don't even need to. The fact that we give our consent to these people and give them legitimacy by our deeds, our actions, and the words that come out of our mouth, if we simply stop that, they're done.
Well, plus we
Stop feeding them.
Plus
well,
we have
that's
other-
what. It's like the gal here. I just turned into the show, so I didn't know who the gal is here that was talking about the tax deal. But and somebody said, "Well, did you pay them what you owed them?" Or the other guy that was talking, I don't know who that was either. But I feel that I'm going to pay the IRS exactly what I owe them. Nothing. I don't owe them $42,000, and they are not going to get $42,000. And I'm not going to hide out and try to play the game like that's saying that you have a guilty conscience and you're trying to run and hide from them.
Well,
I'm just not, but I'm not going to deposit money into my account where they can pilfer it. I did find out there's a lien on my account, so I don't do any more money handling through the bank.
Well,
Yeah.
like it is, they can do what they want to do. In our case, what I came on for is they are planning on selling our property next Thursday. They have an open house on Wednesday, and Thursday it's supposed to go.
Why don't we give the address?
2340 Ravenwood Avenue. That's out by the airport off Dale Road.
Say it one more time, just like Trudio.
2340 Ravenwood Avenue.
Yeah.
And when is the public viewing?
The public viewing is from 1 to 3 on Wednesday. And the sale is, you can sign in at 10:30, and the sale is supposed to start at 11. Which brings up another curious question, if I may bring it up. There used to be a rule that any public auction by the government was supposed to be done on the steps of the courthouse. And I remember years ago they actually used to have them on the steps of the federal courthouse. And I did some reading at that time and found out there is something that they're doing illegal, which, of course, who would ever think that would happen?
What?
Yeah.
But since then, now they have them in the lobby of the Rabinowitz courthouse. So what has changed, or what have they perverted to have it inside the courthouse? And I have not been able to do enough research to find out, and I have not found anybody who knows any more than I do. But if anybody has any ideas on that, I sure would like to hear about it. Thank you.
Thanks for the call. 458-TALK is the number. Good morning. Welcome to Patriots Lament. Who's this?
Morning.
Hey, who is this?
Hey, this is Bob.
Bob, go ahead.
Hey, I've been listening to you guys. I called in way back. I waited forever, and you guys never got me in the 9 o'clock hour. But, hey, I wanted to ask you just one thing. Is the guy who supposedly did the old Benghazi video, which got the whole world all upset, is he a political prisoner or not? He's in, now that the little hearings have happened, we find out that nobody was mad about any video. And if that guy was supposed to go to jail, he should have probably went to jail before anything happened. But is he a U.S. political prisoner?
I have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, of course, we don't have political prisoners in America, right?
So you're saying he is a political prisoner? Do you think he is? That's kind of my question, because I do think he is. And then
yes.
Some people, I kind of put that out there, and some people kind of threw me under the bus. No, the guy was arrested for bank fraud and changing his name. No, that's what they used. Of course, he was already guilty long before the Benghazi thing.
Right.
No, I think he's a political prisoner. I think he should be released and cut the BS. That's bad. But he's only one guy, and we don't know him, and he's kind of a shadowy character anyway.
Well, they make you a shadowy character when they want to get rid of you. I mean, what's the first thing you do with someone that you don't want to talk? You discredit them. And that's the first thing you do, discredit it. So now anything he says, well, we can't really listen to what he says because, he's kind of a shady guy and he's in jail. And
what I think is funny is that if you watch the news, you have 3 or 4 things going on that are making national news. Guys that kidnapped the girls, the Boston bombers.
Keep getting too far away from
the Boston bombers, so on and so forth. But the Benghazi thing is in front of Congress.
Yeah,
and you haven't heard a word about it. I found that out on the internet. I wouldn't even have known that anything was going on with it because not a single news channel is saying a word about it.
It's not news. It's entertainment TV is what the news turned into.
It's a
Everybody
joke.
Supposed, what do you think these girls went through? Well, who cares? We'll find out sooner or later. But you guys ain't got it hashed out for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Well, you're not even knowing what you're talking about. So
we actually think that anyone that's in jail for a state crime that hasn't harmed another person's property or person is a political prisoner.
Yeah. I mean, they had.
So are you trying to say that Schaefer Cox is a political prisoner?
Wait, how many people didn't he murder a bunch of people?
He planned to murder people
that didn't exist.
Yeah. Well, they could have existed.
Well, the whole point is that the reason why they don't exist is because they're the shadowy characters that he imagined in his mind. What?
All
right.
Let's go.
458-TALK, the number. Good morning. You're next on Patriots Lament. Who's this?
Hey, this is Carl.
Carl?
Yeah.
What's on your mind, brother? Make it quick.
Well, like with the IRS, basically, let me shoot through that. Okay. Basically, you just pay them whatever they ask. They're like they're like the mafia, man. I mean, my ancestors helped form this country, and it's like you better agree with the. Pledge your loyalty or we'll burn you down in your church, I mean, that's just the way it is in America. So welcome to America. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you find your true path in life.
Thanks for the call.
That was probably the best Carl call we've ever had.
Well, you know what? Occasionally he does have moments of sentient thought, which we have to give him credit for.
That was good.
That was. All right, we've got about 5 minutes left until we get kicked out of here. What is our action point for this, Josh? I know there are a lot of folks that are listening today that this may be the first time, probably the first time they've heard about what happened to Rita and Don, but possibly the first time they thought about ever actually standing up to the IRS on somebody else's behalf. Because, we use that illustration of the caribou and the wolves, go out there and picking them off one by one. If we were more like muskox, and turned around, and so that everywhere the wolves came, they got the horn, instead of, it's almost as if the caribou are kicking out certain members of the herd.
Yes, we do.
I was just going to say we're worse than caribou because we'll push one out there. Come on.
At least the caribou all run together. They don't hold one guy and say, hey, take him, push him down. And it's like the deal where, they say if you're out in the woods where there's a lot of grizzly bears, you don't need a big gun. You just got to be able to shoot your buddy in the leg before he shoots you and take off running, and the bear gets him.
All right, so
what is the action point? Basically, we wanted to have them on so they could tell their story and do exactly what you just said. People have never thought about this, need to think about it, and we need to ask ourselves because there's people out there that think this is okay, that this is right, this is correct. This should not be happening in America. But it does every day. People all over America have this happen to them every single day. When do we say that this isn't right? I mean, we're not even to the point where people will say this is not right.
I'm having a very dangerous thought right now.
Then don't say it.
I'm going to say it anyway, all right? What if on the open house day, people going over to the house that is being auctioned off on Thursday, the open house is on Wednesday, what if people went over there and instead of inspecting the house, like people normally would, am I going to buy this? They went to the agent there and started poking at his feet. Take a little stick, hey, let me see your ribs. Oh, open your mouth. Let me see your teeth. What kind of teeth you got?
Do
you see where I'm going with this?
Put them on
treat the agent like he is on the auction block.
I think calling him a welfare queen's perfect.
What if 10 or 20 or even 50 people showed up and mocked the snot out of these IRS goons?
Make them feel reluctant. Make them feel like they're not wanted, not liked. Something. I don't know. I mean, it's a shame that we can't even do that.
Oh, that one caller had the best idea I've heard in a long time. That's almost as good as the Liberty Bell. Actually, it's probably better than the Liberty Bell. It's more effective, I would think, to ostracize rather than affront, for sure. That's a great idea.
We could do that right here on the show.
We could do that on the show.
Have our weekly crook of the week.
Yep.
Yeah,
Local
we were
crook of the
doing
week.
our pile of poop of the week, but
That
that
was
didn't last
true.
very long. There were so many to choose from. That ended as quick as it began.
That's because we spent all night trying to decide who was going to win. It was like a tie every night. There's another tie. It's another tie. Poop of the week. Let's take the last two calls and see if
we got in 2 minutes. Maybe going to go fast.
Okay.
Good morning, caller. Who's this?
Hello, this is Bob.
Bob, go fast.
Well, why don't the listeners get together and buy this property and give it back to the people that have it?
Yeah,
the IRS like that.
There's no minimum, I heard.
Well, I don't even know where it's at or anything like that, but...
Well, we can give the address again.
Okay, give the address.
The address is 2340 Ravenwood Avenue. It's off Dale Road by the airport.
Okay.
And that's...
The dock's off on Thursday. How much is owed on it?
Nothing. The house is paid for. What they claim they want, they would never even get out of the house. And like I said, everything they're doing is illegal and unlawful. They do not have title. They have never changed the property into their name. It is in our name. We have title, we have a lodial title, and we have the homestead exemption on it. So they have absolutely nothing to give you if you buy it.
Well, if you get enough people together to buy this thing and they're willing to just give the money away,
That's what happened with Willie Nelson. Come on. But he's a celebrity.
But aren't we those still? I mean, I guess it's kind of like the idea of going to buy a slave to set him free.
Yeah, well, there's a certain amount of rules that whether you guys like it or not, we got to play by. And they happen to own all the rules and all the cards.
Yep. No, we know that.
All right. Hey, thanks for another awesome idea. Appreciate that. Rita, Don, thank you for being here today.
Yeah,
and
great.
I'm going to get your contact information from Josh so that if people come in or call in and want to be able to get in contact with you, I can get that from Josh. And we will see you all next week at 9 a.m.
Wake up, folks.
On the Saturday morning wake-up call, as a matter of fact.
KFAR, Fairbanks, 660 AM. Online at KFAR660.com.